Hey viewers, welcome to the silver episode of the Renewalism Show. Yes, we are 25 days into this, and I'm really excited because the subject of today is so very appropriate for an episode as significant as this one. If you've been around for some of our past episodes, you probably know that this entire series is based on the book Renewal, which talks about starting a movement of renewalism. Those of you joining in for the first time, welcome to the show and keep tuned in. Renewalism is a change, but it proposes a change in our lifestyle and thinking because human consciousness is in a state where we are the whole world is in a state where we are into witnessing increasing personal illness and disintegration, all sorts of moral decay, environmental degradation, and all that. And renewal proposes a set of 30 habits that would be as simple to adopt as veganism, for example. That's why there's always a comparison with that, because that's a recent movement which has brought about a lot of change. Now, a lot of what is written in the book Renewal has started to be practiced by humanity because of this corona crisis. We've started doing telecommuting, we've started doing minimalistic living, we've stopped being heavy consumerists, and all of that has had positive implications. We've also started renewing ourselves at a mind, body, spirit level, introspecting, spending time with family, and stuff like that, which is awesome. What's even more awesome is that this book was written in December. It was actually channeled to me by a certain Guru Pranachandra, an energy form, I believe. And it was only while I was editing the book that the coronavirus and the lockdown started happening, and I realized that I've got to bring this book out to you before we get back into the old ways of our living. And, we start realizing that there is a systematic process to keep this on. So, coming to today's episode. Now, why that's so important is because this book, it you can pick up a copy at renewalism.com. This book talks of the first lines on the back cover is the human race conclusively set for self-annihilation. As futurists prophesize, are we only decades away from extinguishing the planet? Or are we capable of changing this trajectory because of what you start today? Now, what humanity has started in terms of making technologies and evolving mathematical models and converting those models into physical realities, it's based on something called game theory. And I'm so ripped to have a game theorist with us today. He's a professor, an author of Game Sutra and Startup Sutra and Blood Red River. And he is deeply entrenched with this subject and its practical manifestations in business and industry. So I'm going to welcome Dr. Rohit Prasad on the show now. And I'm going to start with you, Doctor, with a hi, of course. Hi there. We see you here.
Hi.
And a little explanation about, in very simple terms, of what is game theory for our viewers before we get a little more intense with this.
Sure, I'll get to game theory in a minute, Sandeep. But before that, I want to congratulate you on this new book. It's a great achievement, and it's a great pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you.
I now would like to explain what is game theory, and what better way to do so than by playing a game. So if you will allow me, I will propose a game which I would like to play with you.
Wonderful. Shoot.
So So the game is as follows. Some kind uncle of ours has offered a bounty of $1,000. And there is just one condition. He likes his family members to play games. So he's given the first move to me and asked me to make you an offer of a split between
Mhm.
the two of us. If you accept the split, then we split the $1,000 in the manner that I have proposed. If you reject the split, then neither of us gets a single cent of the money. Are you ready to play?
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
So here's my offer. I offer you 900 and I offer you $5 out of the $1,000 and myself $995. Now
$5. Okay, I'll
remember,
take it.
you'll take it.
I'm
Okay,
always open to receive.
great. So first of all, thanks for making me $995 richer. And congratulations also on behaving like the human being that is the standard assumption in game theory. The
Really?
whole of game theory is based on the assumption that we are rational individuals and that we find ourselves in interactive situations. Interactive
Right.
situations are situations where my payoff depends not just on what I do, but also on what you do. So the situation we were in was an interactive situation in which both of us were behaving rationally in order to maximize our payoffs. And you did absolutely the thing that traditional game theorists prophesy that people would do, that a
Okay.
rational person would do. But here's some news for you and for our audience today. This game, which is called the Ultimatum Game, has been played by audiences by people across continents for several years. And routinely, people reject offers which give them too much less than 50%. And this particular game has brought home to the game theorists a very important fact about human behavior, that while it may be true that humans are goal-seeking individuals, they are not material goal-seeking individuals alone. In other words, their satisfaction is not derived entirely from their material benefits. In fact, one could argue that human beings are primarily emotional beings and that they are always trying to maximize their emotional payoffs, as people who were playing this game across continents were doing when they felt they were being treated unfairly. And so this is what where we move from traditional game theory to behavioral game theory. And between these two branches of game theory lies the whole secret of human interaction.
Wow. Now, that was very simply put. I think everybody would have got that. I'm going to take you a step deeper into how this forms the basis of computer programs and Bitcoin and all those sort of things that we keep hearing about.
Yeah. So that's a great question. In fact, uh, unlike human beings, computers can be programmed to behave completely rationally with respect to predefined goals without any interference from emotion. And
Right.
so when we are, for example, on a telecom network of the kind we are on right now in this telecast, this is the result of a large number of programs which are routing data through different nodes of a network into our homes. And this data is being routed in competition with other packets of data, which are also seeking to reach their destination. And there is one programmer, which is the telecom operator, who is trying to optimize the network. So at every node, the uh, the telecom operator has embedded a decision rule, an interactive decision rule.
Embedded a decision
And
rule.
these
Right.
different nodes,
Right.
yeah, and these different nodes are interacting with each other. Each of them is trying to maximize their own payoff. And they are interacting with each other in this common network in order to bring about the transmission of this content and various other kinds of content. And this is what
Hmm.
actually, so telecom networks are a very great example of the use of game theory in order to optimize
Evidently.
something.
Evidently. So, Dr. Prasad, I'm going to read you a piece from here. I know you read part of this, but perhaps not this, or for the benefit of our viewers, because Guru Pranachandra, like you, puts things across simply. He says that you will agree that machines never forget what has once been inputted to them. And anyone who has set the alarm on their cell phone knows how easy it is to program a machine. Just as your cell phone mindfully wakes you up today, it can kill you another day without awareness of what it is doing, without conscience or consciousness. Now, we're talking about paradigms of human behavior and how machines are constructed and how they move networks and whatever else. Has game theory gone into the consciousness of building machines, or are they just going to be, like he says, weapons of destruction because they just programmed to be that way?
Game theory has studied, there is a branch of game theory which studies how machines can be programmed uh, in order to achieve certain goals. And I'm not very conversant with that branch of game theory, which is called finite automata. But the broad conclusions of that study, of that area, are the following. First of all, uh, it is very difficult to to teach a machine to behave in complex ways.
Right.
So the rules that can be embedded in a machine have to be fairly simple. That's one. And the second learning that is evident in that field is that the rules that are embedded in a machine can result in suboptimal outcomes for all concerned. The and this is something that is a theme that runs across game theory, not just for machines, but also for human interaction. That the pursuit of self-interest can lead to suboptimal outcomes for all concerned. That is something that game theory is very well aware of and has spent a lot of time trying to develop.
Awesome. I love the words you use. The pursuit of self interest is exactly, I think, what the ego is about. And that's where the human aspect of being comes in, and that's the one that all this mindfulness is about. I mean, if our egos and our ability to be mindful of what we've been doing by way of the human imprint on each other and on the planet and on other species would have been different, we would have been in a completely different state today. But today we are in the state where we are almost cloning ourselves through technology, but missing that link of the 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 ego driven consciousness, and probably an ego that is capable of uh, doing what's beneficial for all concerned rather than taking everyone down, right? I don't exactly remember, I was trying to remember the words you use, but it generally takes everyone down, right?
Yes, yes. So here's a very interesting thing, if I may add something at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in game theory, we use the word rationality, and
Yes.
rationality is considered to be a great thing in game theory. Uh, Game theorists believe in being rational. And what does the word rationality remind you of? Does it remind you of the brain? or does it remind you of the heart?
The brain, level-headed.
The brain. Yes. So game theory and game theorists prioritize the brain and the thought over the heart and the emotion. Uh,
Right.
but this is actually something which is of almost self-delusional on the part of game theorists, because, and here's where we come to the ego. Human beings are ego-driven, and that's
We
another
are.
way of saying ego-driven is that they are driven by emotion.
Yeah.
So game theorists, by creating a world and by studying a world of people who are supposed to be driven by the brain, miss the point. And that's where behavioral game theory really comes into the picture. But to the credit of game theory, I must say that they have recognized right from the get-go that the pursuit of self-interest, whether driven by the brain or even driven by the heart, can lead to collective action failure, as it is called. I mean, it's a simple thing. If you're on the road, which none of us is now, but if you are on the road, hypothetically, then you would, if you have to get to your destination, then if everyone else is following rules, then it doesn't harm you to actually break the rules. But if everyone thinks in this way, there'll be these traffic snarls that we see. So that's an example of collective action failure, and something that game theory recognizes.
Right. Very, very interesting. Now, when it comes to designing of automation, robots and stuff like that, they are to sort of be infused with the more on the relationship aspects to make them more real, like the movie Her, for example, or so many of them. And I'm sure this relationship aspect has to be built in at a heart level somehow. How are we looking at doing stuff like that in the future?
I'm I can't answer you as a game theorist,
Okay.
because
No, then
game theory doesn't
we'll
have a
save that
crystal
one because I was just going down that rabbit hole. I'm really excited because when it comes to relationships, then that's where the ego actually plays the big role. And in fact, there is a habit that I wanted to bring to our viewers in this episode, which is enhance your control of relationships with pace awareness. The PACE it's an acronym for how you handle your mindfulness. You get into that state of mindful pace awareness to handle interpersonal relationships. And there is a 15-year-old, there's a fiction track in the book, and so there's a 15-year-old who actually spells out exactly what is space awareness, which is how simple it is. And Guru Pranachandra says at the end that, ladies and gentlemen, was 30 seconds of relationship advice that you'd get from a whole library of relationship books. So the way of using
I'm
the
eager
mind
to
and
know what that is.
mindfulness for awareness. Sorry.
I'm eager to know what that is. That 30 seconds.
Well, that's beyond the scope of this episode. I think renewalism.com is the place to go. But the reason I want to bring up this habit was because I was wanting to know that as we going forward with technology, our dependence on technology is increasing so much. Are we going to have a different dynamic of relationships? And are probably robots going to drive what the paradigm of a right relationship is? I was in Japan some time back, and there was this very cute little robot standing at the basement, not the basement, at the entrance of a multi-story mall, and she was designed like a very cute 5-year-old. And she opened her eyes the moment we sort of made contact in her direction, and then we made eye contact, and she spoke like a 5-year-old. Can I help you? And she's so sweet. And then when we asked her about where I think we asked her where interior decoration was, and she looked at us and moved her hands and eyes and said, "I'm sorry, I'm still learning. I can't help you with that one." But then when we said, "Where's home furnishing?"
Okay.
she lit up. You know, she said, "I know that," and guided us to where we ought to go for
Okay.
that. So, on a separate note, Dr. Prasad, I have read somewhere that the biggest challenge for the under 10-year-olds of today is the challenge of uh, emotional perfection, because that's what the robots like this one are being programmed with, are being built with. And any mother would say, "See, look at that. She's so polite. She's so kind. She doesn't know things. She admits it. This, that, blah, blah, blah." You know, and I'm just wondering whether
And
we're developing stuff in our programs. That was the reason why I asked you that. So sorry, I had to give you all that background. But if game theory doesn't have an answer to that, somebody better do that, and that's something that we can do, you and I, as humans, through renewal, because we build
yes,
that kind of consciousness into our kids to understand that what's the difference between the product of our ability and imagination and divine ability and imagination, which is produced the entire creation. And
yes.
we just part of it. Let's not mess with it far too much.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, great. So, viewers, we are on the top of 20 minutes now. We're here every day at 9 p.m. Subscribe to this channel so that you get notifications. Tomorrow, we're here with a very, very interesting person from Dubai. And she is, well, she practices energy. She's been an actress, she's an artist, and we're talking about how energy works with us inside and out, and the importance of water, the importance of moving energetically for self renewal. So set your alarms for 9 tomorrow, return to this page, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you there. But before I let you go, I want to hand over back to Dr. Prasad for some concluding remarks, some bit of advice on what to do and what to look out for. Dr. Prasad.
Well, I would like to end by saying that each one of us has a choice. We are all decision makers, and we have a choice of whether we want to accept ourselves and our deepest needs, or do we want to accept what others expect from us? And
Profound.
for too long, we have lived according to others' expectations, and because we have felt that there was no alternative. But I think a crisis is a great time for us to renew our ability and our desire to live according to our own compass and our own needs, our deepest needs, which is basically to accept ourselves as we are. So, as I say to game theorists, that game theory is a great science. It has taught the whole world a lot. It's taught me a lot. But fundamentally, each one of us is a human being and is an emotional being. And that is something we must never forget.
Wow. Wow, that is so eloquent. Thank you so much for that,
My
Dr.
pleasure.
Prasad. Can't think of any better way to wrap up this episode. Wish you all a very good night and thanks for being on the
Thank you.
show. And please continue to put your comments and questions down below. We will be coming back. We'll take a look. We'd love to have you interacting more with us. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.